Hello, students. I wanted to go through a couple examples of how do I utilize the embed feature. So what we're going to do is we're in a Jupyter Notebook, and if I use any code blocks, I can still run my code. The idea being now, can I capture that image, let's just say for an exam or assessment? There will be portions where I say, show me your code and the result. Well, let's just say I took this set from the West Vaco, which is one of our earlier Jupyter notebooks, and I wanted to run a histogram on West Vaco $age. Maybe I just want to run that, and let's just see. Again, I probably should do the standard data equals West Vaco, and I run it, and I get this histogram. So maybe for the exam, I say, I want to see your code and the result. So I would take a screenshot here, and you can either use Windows Shift S or the print screen button, depending on what you're feeling like, but just grab a screenshot, then then save the screenshot as like a JPEG or something like that. Testing screenshot. Okay. And I'm going to save it. So you can save that. However, if your screenshots come up, sometimes they go and they store them temporarily in a file. Make sure you know where they're stored, save them. Then what you'll do is let's say this was the test or any window, you can click in the reply window and it provides you with a whole lot of options. In the insert, you would insert an image. And so when you go to insert the image, you have to upload the image to kind of embed the image in the box. And I would use the testing the screenshot option. I would click submit. And then what I see here is I can actually see everything that I screenshotted, my code and the result, and then I post. Now on the test, you don't have to do any posting. It's just going to show up there as part of your test. But the test will have similar reply boxes like this for these questions. I'll say, show me your code, show me what you got, and that's how you'll embed it. So you'll save it to your computer as a JPEG, and then you'll embed it into the test right there. Okay. So again, if we were back here and what other information do we have from West Vaco? I have their pay. Okay, so I guess I could chain on a GF underscore tilde pay. And that would show my two different types of pay, the H and the S, and I could compare them. Again, if you wanted to, I'm going to get rid of the West Vaco piece, so I'll just hashtag that out. I did pay here. You could do pay dot and run it again, and then it's the vertical type. So again, if I wanted that, I hit print screen, I snag my little code block, I grab that, I save it. Make sure you save it. This is one you'll want to practice. Testing screenshot number 2. Save it. You can go back here. And then again, as you get used to it, it's insert image, upload image. And from there, choose testing number 2, submit. And there is my sample. Okay. Again, you'll have to answer questions about it as well. So this is not the end of it, but this just shows how you can upload and make sure that it's embedded. Don't copy and paste a picture. It won't show up for me. And anyway, that's a good one. And I'll make you test it a little bit with just some other screenshots. So I want you to do other screenshots just of other websites or something like that, and we'll let you practice that. You also need it for the test, so make sure that we feel comfortable with this. All right, off you go.